Agents Mulder and Scully, FBI.
Well, good evening, everybody. Sorry for the
Howdy.
late start, but here we are. We're here. So, and welcome to Beard and
Howdy.
Shieldwall.
Yep. Hey, how's it going, everybody? So, yeah, it just every time I see that intro, all those great movies on there, and I started thinking back to the first time I was on the show, and then all the different movies and shows and things like that we've reviewed so far. It's been a great journey.
Yeah.
I get lost in the music. That's such a good track.
Crazy. We're coming up on 100 popcorn talks, so that's exciting.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, and I can't remember like when you first invited me on. I don't know how long. I don't know how many episodes I've been on. It's just part of my week now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mando was actually one of the first people was on the first stream. So
yeah,
Wow.
I'm sure if I went back and
y'all
looked, I
came
could
on.
try to figure it out. But
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been great.
And somewhere along the way, you saw this like homeless looking bald dude with a scraggly beard and said, I'll get him a place to stay.
Why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good avatar there, Beard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got my buddy Snail Messiah. He does a lot of AI art tinkering, and he's pretty good with it. He's sent me several of them.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That one and a few, because we do Fallout chats, a few Fallout ones as well.
Right.
So, for some reason, the AI always puts the crown of the Statue of Liberty on my head.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
Hey, I'll take it.
Howdy, Emma.
Yeah.
Hey, Emma. So yeah, this first episode was crazy.
Boy, not a lot happened in it, if I'm honest. I think at one point I thought,
really.
Finally, like we're getting to the point where like they're like actually like doing something about what's going on. And I looked at the time code. I'm like, oh, there's like 5 minutes left in the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then this club scene was like, it was. I was like, I don't know. 90s clubs were like that, I guess.
Really?
But
I never went to a club, so I don't know.
Me neither. Not cool enough. Wasn't cool enough then. Wasn't ever cool enough after that, and definitely not cool enough now.
I've been to quite a few of them, but most of them were overseas somewhere. But I went to a couple when I lived in Tucson. So, but it's Tucson, so it's not going to be LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know what this guy was doing, getting his horoscope off of some non-existent, whatever this thing was.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, they just put like a painted screen on it and was like, "This is your horoscope."
Yeah, they basically did the Star Trek trick where they just like put a painted piece of plastic with a light behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it looked like the L cars from Star Trek. Yeah, for the Next Generation.
Yeah, she just comes up and grabs his hand like,
It's like, all right, why not?
But you could tell there was like something going on.
Yeah. Gonna have to skip a little bit here.
Yeah, and this actor, I think I've seen him in a bunch of other stuff in the 90s. Just on like random shows or whatever. This is kind of the feeling I get. Oh yeah. So what happens is they kind of
go back to a motel room. He starts convulsing and stuff comes out of his mouth, and
right.
Then we see
kind of do the
girl
deed. Yeah.
turns into a man.
Yeah. Those are some pretty gnarly feet too.
Yeah.
And then right. So yeah, it turns into a it's ma'am.
It's ma'am.
Yeah, this
Hey,
episode.
Daxonar.
What's up? I'm trying to look up this dude.
So I didn't really get this as a nowadays people will be like, oh, it's a trans allegory and all this
It's
stuff.
fluid.
I didn't get that whatsoever. It was just a story
No,
about
I
like
didn't.
some stuff that was going on. You know what I mean? Like paranormal activity, weird stuff.
Well, and not to just jump all the way to the end, but it's also one of the, at least as far as I know, one of the early ones that like solidifies the maybe it was aliens kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
The X makes it sound cool. Yes.
So yeah, so just for context, which we couldn't show, even though it was for TV, primetime TV back in the 90s.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad, but they do the deed, and then he's like, wow, that's almost like, that's like the best I've ever had. And then he starts having like a heart attack, and like this pink foam comes out of his mouth. And he's got
Wow.
scratches on him too, like because they were so like into it or whatever. And then while he's dying
Gord.
in the bed, that they have like this shot block of the lady with like light and shadow, so that light's across her eyes, but the rest of her body's in shadow. And
Yeah.
she just sits there standing in the bathroom watching him die. And that's when she changes into a dude. Like the feet change, and we just showed you those slides. And then now they're like, hey, this guy's dead. Then the security footage shows a man walking out of the room. So security footage shows a woman and a man going in, and then just one dude coming out.
And not only a dude walking out, but wearing his clothes.
Right, wearing his clothes and had
Right.
like a suitcase or something. And now, so they're trying to figure out like what was going on. And Mulder's taken like some samples off the body of the like a pink vomit that he had and the scratches and stuff.
Yeah. So this I guess this is a detective, I think.
Right. Yeah, he's a local PD
And
detective.
he's saying, well, who called you guys in? And it's like Mulder already knows. He always has other cases that are connected in some way.
What he does is he has like bulletins out to police or other agencies to look out for if somebody dies in this weird fashion or has these particular things about it, contact me. And so now he's going through the cases of 5 other people that have died in a similar way. Also, I was going to mention, and yeah, here we go. Since Roma the Empire's not here, I'll take his spot and be like, look at the shoulder pads on her.
Yep.
That's his thing. Every time we look at X-Files, he's got to talk crap about Scully's shoulder pads and Mulder's
ties.
Yeah, he talks crap about Mulder's ties. He likes Scully's pantsuits.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's Scully in a pantsuit, so
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's a mixture. It's not just men; it's women too. The victims.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. The victims are men and women, and this most current person, the scratches had this weird clay residue in it that only comes from one place in the United States. So,
right.
Yeah.
So they're
able to look at that tie.
Yep.
I see no problem with it. If I'm going to wear a tie, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make
it
garish.
But all his ties look like old hotel carpet.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If I have to wear a tie, I'm going to make sure it stands out and people notice, even if they notice it poorly. Plus, my beard covers up half of a tie these days.
Yeah, it comes from one place, and it's only mined by a certain group of people. They're Amish, or they're not Amish, but
they're
they're
Amish, but totally not Amish. At the same time.
Amish-like. Yeah, right.
There are several different
Hey, Boosh.
groups in America that are kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I live close to some in Missouri, and after watching this episode, I was like, what are those
Now you
Amish
have
doing
questions.
out there? I have questions now.
yeah, so they have various levels of adherence to non-technology and stuff, from like
Yeah.
the super hardcore ones where no electricity, only buggies, that kind of stuff, to basically the only way that you can, they've got businesses, internet, the whole thing. It's just that they just like their religious practices are the thing that set them apart, really. But they
Yeah.
run businesses and all that, and so, but yeah, it's just a different way of life. Nothing wrong with that.
No. So I forget where this is. Where is this? They showed it.
Um,
I think it's because everything's kind of right up there near. I think it actually is in Pennsylvania.
it's
Philadelphia.
it was
border
in
right on the
it was
edge.
like in Maine or something, Massachusetts.
Maine?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of those states.
So this is where all the killings have happened.
Right.
Yeah.
They said it's heading
That's what they
south.
showed
The
there.
killer's heading south. It's going from Boston to someplace in New York State on down to Philadelphia. Yeah, that's not Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
No.
Well, yeah, there might be parts of Pennsylvania that have the Appalachians that go through it, but I don't think they have, hot mountains that high there. Maybe they do.
I just see anything that kind of looks like that filmed during this period of time, and just assume it's in Canada.
Yeah,
Because
this is
so much
exactly,
of it was.
Yeah, this is exactly where it was. That's somewhere. That's way north of Pennsylvania for sure.
Yeah, the Amish where I was, they you'd see them at Walmart. They would hire somebody that drove that wasn't Amish to bring them into town.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's where the varying degrees of adherence to whatever rules they have, like Shield was saying, comes into play. Because I'm sure there are some that would say
Right.
that you're not even supposed to do that.
Right.
So this guy has pictures of him on the walls.
Because people come to the town to buy they make pottery, a special handmade pottery.
Right.
And that's why the town is famous, because it's like there were in the late 1800s, there was a religious sect that lived in the Northeast called the Shakers, because when they worshiped, they would shake, and
Yeah.
anyway, they were famous for making certain types of furniture, which if you want to buy original Shaker furniture now, it's super expensive and rare. Well, it's not super rare, but it's expensive. It's high quality, so it's kind of like that. These people were well known for making this special pottery out of this clay that only exists on their land. It's like a special kind of clay.
Right.
And so they have, and that's why they're famous.
Yep.
So he has pictures of them in his shop because, you know, to kind of promote it.
Yeah. Welcome to Coins. Thanks for dropping in.
Yeah. Who says bunch of potheads?
Yeah.
Then coincidentally, oh look, there they are now. Because they come into the in town to get their feed from the feed store. But apparently keep to themselves. As we find out shortly, they're not really supposed to interact,
Even talk with people.
like talk with people. It's just business and leave.
So this is what Canada
He's
looked
like,
like
we
in the
don't talk to
90s.
strangers. Yeah. The Amish.
So
Watching Scully try to like interact with this guy and make awkward small talk to get a conversation going, that hit home because that's basically any time I attempt to make small talk with a stranger, it's just doesn't really work well.
So Mulder goes in to talk to them, and then Scully goes over to talk to this guy to try to get information out of him, and you know, and also to pet the horse because why not?
Don't insult that hat, Dax. That's an okay hat.
He's like, we're not supposed to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's super awkward too.
Yeah. And he touches her, he shakes her hand, and immediately Scully's like,
I think the word is swoon.
Yes.
Right. And this is where you get the real indication that that something's going on. And if you recall, when that guy was looking at his horoscope, she touched his hand and suddenly he got interested in her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much so that I think we glossed over this detail. So much so that they went through the entire deed and he said, like, I don't even know your name. So yeah, and that's our first indication that there might be more than just that something with that one person that can affect people.
Sadly, that's probably not an uncommon occurrence, though.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly not now. All you need to know is the Tinder handle. You don't need to know the name.
Mulder's like, to have a 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
I guess the Bureau didn't pay for 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, it's always some crappy rental anyway. That's like an 80s car.
Yeah, they're not going to spend money for especially for the agents that are working on the X-Files. They're going to save that for the directors.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've got like a full. And why wait until this late in the day? But they're just like walking into the woods for a full mile.
Yeah.
Without a compass.
The map shows we're supposed to be there by now.
And it's like some kind of tourist map or something.
Yeah. And this is a nice little thing. I don't know how planned it was, but he crumples it up, kicks it straight up, and she catches it. I don't know. It's nice.
Yeah, I don't think that was planned. They didn't do a bunch of takes trying to get that one.
Yeah.
That just happened. You know what I mean?
And then the Amish are just there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I keep calling them Amish. They're not Amish.
They're called...
But it's funny.
They're called the Kindred.
The Kindred, okay.
Yeah, that's it. The Kindred.
For some reason, I saw Dax's name in the chat, and I wanted to call him Daxonites. It just popped into my head. I was like,
Yeah, they're
wait, that's
basically
not it.
they're basically like, yeah, we'll allow you on our land, but you got to give us your guns.
Yeah, that'd have been a no from me, dog.
That would have
Yeah,
been a
no,
no for anybody,
we're going
especially
back the
that
other
had
way. Bye.
like a government issued firearm. If it ever
Right.
got back to their bosses, they handed them over.
Exactly. Yep.
And I don't think they actually hand them over because you just see Mulder take the
No,
mag out,
they take the
and then
magazine out.
he puts it back in, but he doesn't even clear the chamber. So
He's
he's
the other thing is I don't know how like isolated these people are, but I mean they obviously know how a firearm works if they were cool with that.
Yeah.
And there's some other instances where they talk to them about certain things, medical terms, things like that, and they know what they're talking about. So I don't know, you know what I mean? If they have books, how much they know about medicine, the outside world, those kinds of
Mhm.
things, kind of makes you wonder, you know.
You definitely get the feeling they know more that they've just chosen to isolate themselves from, at the
Right.
very least, if they're not actually hiding more.
Or
that
the
they know.
writers didn't really take that into consideration, and just for
Yeah.
the sake of the show, they were just like, okay, they're going to know this stuff.
I'm going to try to give them as much credit as I can on this episode because
Mhm.
there wasn't a lot put into this episode as far as writing goes.
Well,
if I'm
and
honest.
I will say this, later when we get to the part where they take him to their house, they're actually using real burning, like, kerosene
Yes.
lamps and stuff. It isn't like, you know, electric bulbs in there or whatever.
Yeah.
Also,
I
the
just have to
meal-
let y'all know I got some rain coming through, so if
Uh-oh.
I
Okay.
get knocked off, that's why.
Well, hopefully
All right.
we can make it through.
Yeah.
I mean, if not, you know, Shield and I were talking earlier. We'll just do it like the old radio play and make up the sound effects as we go. There
Right.
just won't be any pictures.
There just won't be any pictures, but to do it all from memory.
So I got this feeling when they were walking up on this little town. I'm just like, I'm sure I've seen that repainted in an episode of Stargate or somewhere. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of the time period this was filmed. But this definitely
Well,
part
okay,
of
so
this
this
felt like a Stargate episode.
93, Stargate started in 97.
Okay.
So it wasn't too far off. I mean, this is a
Mm.
nice place. I mean, the barn's a little run down, but the house looks really nice.
Yeah.
I think this episode would have been 94, I think.
Okay, right. Yeah. Because it started in September 93, and by episode 14 or 15, you would have already been
Yeah,
into
94.
94. At least the area
Yeah.
of it was.
Yeah,
Who knows? Yeah.
This one came out January 21st, 94.
Okay, so but
Okay.
obviously this was shot probably a few weeks earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially. They're pretty run and gun with some of the shows back then.
Yeah, but I think they usually try to have like be like 2 or 3 ahead in case somebody got sick or something.
Yeah, this guy coughing is like, I'm not eating anything.
Yeah, but so they sit him down at the table. Yeah, see, look, they're using real. All of this is real. I could tell because that lantern that's behind him there, in the back shot, like smoke was coming off of it.
Yeah.
Like real, like
Hmm.
real smoke. The one that's hanging above that guy's head, way in the back there. But yeah, and also the food looks really good. They got like mashed potatoes and ham. Greens probably.
Taters.
Yeah, I'm just imagining the female version of this dude.
Yeah, I mean,
Ew. It reminds me of a scene on what is it, Firefly? They're posing as like farmers on a wagon,
Oh
and
yeah,
Mel is
yeah.
dressed up like a woman. How you might want to rethink that one. She's powerful, ugly.
He says, "I swear by my pretty bonnet, I'll make you pay," or something like along those lines.
Yeah.
They just bring them in. It's like, hey, we're gonna join us for dinner, and then they're like, hey, we got questions. Like, no, we're just gonna eat. Meanwhile, the dude that's sounds like he's dying at the end of the table, I fully expected to be like tuberculosis or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dax knows.
It's like, we don't need your questions.
Yeah, the guy at the end of the table hits the table and is like, you come here, we don't need your questions. And then the lady at the other end is like, oh, you've displayed violence through anger. Boy, she was ahead of her time. Words are violence. And
Yeah.
so that guy
Yeah,
has
and
to get punished.
it's not done in a heavy-handed manner. It's actually a pretty natural
Right.
situation to establish the fact that this society is more matriarchal.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like it was like shared or whatever. But yeah, she seemed like she was the
that's what
one
it seemed
in
like.
charge. Yeah. But because he does that, then they start asking Sculler and Mulder questions, and in order for them to kind of, hey, we're not the bad guys, they answer their questions. Sculler and Mulder do to them. But
Yeah.
they never answer questions to Sculler and Mulder
Hey, Penny.
about what they're trying to do.
Yeah. And Mr. Awkward over there just constantly just looking down and away.
Well, you'll see why later, because he knows something.
Yep.
But yeah, I liked this scene, just the care they took to set it up. It looks authentic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, with like the no electricity kind of stuff.
Well, and honestly, the lighting they put into the scene is good because there obviously is a lot more lighting in there than those lanterns would put off, but they made it look very natural.
And now we go back to a club scene again.
Back to the
yeah, it was like a weird, like a lot of times in like the 80s and 90s in the shows, they didn't actually use like real club music. You know, like there's no DMX going on in the background or anything. It's just generic stuff.
So she's like, no, I'm not interested. And he touches her hand. Is like, okay.
Got that magic touch.
Right. Yeah, he was is he on a cell phone? Or is this a different this is a different guy.
This is a different one.
Oh, this is him going to a woman. Yeah. And he's like, you want to dance? She's like, no. And he touches her and she's like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, also they just straight up gave him kerosene lanterns to carry around.
Yeah.
I mean, they got all that pot money, as in pottery.
I'll be right back.
As in pottery.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, they got all that pottery money.
Yeah, and they basically just take them to the trail and go, it's about a mile that way. See ya.
Yeah, I guess they're supposed to leave the lanterns by where they parked their car or something. You know. Good news is it's so wet out because it's like constantly raining. I bet it was raining when they filmed this too. Like they didn't add the rain; it was just there. You know.
Yeah, because especially some of the longer lens shots. Because if the camera's further out and you have to use a long lens, it collapses the depth, and that's why, like with like football games, it'll seem like it's raining or snowing much harder than it actually is. And a few of these shots I could tell was filmed with a longer lens because it looked like it was absolutely pouring, but everybody still seemed kind of not soaked to the bone.
Yeah, there's some scenes later on where they're like walking to the barn. They're literally stepping in like mushy swamp land ground. So yeah. I'm sure it wasn't the most pleasant day to shoot. You know what I mean? But they did good.
I mean, they got to take certain precautions because having to redo Gillian Anderson's hair would be a nightmare with all that hairspray back in the day.
Yeah, the way that she had it like teased out like that. But yeah, they did a good enough job. The thing that gets me is how sometimes the writing is not, absolutely perfect, but at least the stories are interesting.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's just as you go through time, like, because a lot of times in the late 40s, into the 50s, into the 60s, there were a lot of first times that people saw something on a show, like something new, an idea, or like something that's now a trope was
Right.
original. And then I think after enough time passes, like 20, 30 years, you can maybe go to that well again and reuse it because, a lot of younger people wouldn't have remembered it or seen it. So it'll seem new to them. And you can just kind of repeat that pattern with stories. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to like 18th century literature, is the same way. And then
Yeah,
you can
because
retell those stories.
this episode's not really heavy on the story. It's more of approaching a concept and then just kind of like leaving it hanging in the air for you to ask and really ask questions.
Well,
Because even
that's
more
a
than
lot.
some of the
Most of the
X-Files
X-Files.
episodes that
Yeah.
we've looked at, I mean, even more so than some of the other ones, this one just basically answers nothing. It
Well,
just leaves it
right.
all in your head.
Well, sometimes that's better to do with a show
Yeah.
instead of nowadays they
Mhm.
got to walk you through every little thing, what's going on, how it happened, and it's usually some person standing there telling you. Um, or if it's a CW, it's over a coffee in a coffee shop,
Oh God.
um,
Yeah.
talking about their feelings or something.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Hey,
yeah,
Snortapoopus. What's up?
Yeah, but Mulder's got a Mulder, so he has to go back and snoop.
Yeah. Time to snoop.
Which I have to say, unless it was actually fairly windy out there, would be pretty difficult around a place that had no electricity with things like fans or air conditioning units creating white noise to hide the sound of your footsteps.
oh yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
stormy out.
Well, I
It's like
mean, it's not
rainy and
stormy in
stuff.
the caves where Mulder's about to end up.
Oh yeah, well, it's
But I'm
special
I'm
sound
nitpicking here.
deadening clay.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of mushy.
Yeah. But so the guy that was coughing at the dinner table, they're taking him into this barn and they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" So they're gonna follow him in there.
Yeah, because initially when they took him out of the dining room, they were refusing medical care, saying we take care of our own.
So they put like some of that clay on his head. So they're looking through like slats in the barn right now. And there's like a horse in
Yeah.
front of them.
See, this proves they're not Amish. There's slats in the side of the barn. They didn't build that
Yeah,
very well.
Oh, yeah.
that's just shoddy. Now, if they had built the barn out of clay, it would have been mint.
Yeah. So yeah, they're watching what they're doing. They have like a little kind of ceremony. Then they go into this. So inside the barn, then they have like a cellar door. It's kind of weird that it could then goes down inside. Most of the time, when you have a cellar door that opens like that, it's on the exterior of a building.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's like horse legs or something. I can't. And it's still there. Okay, that was
Mulder's like, I'm going to go in.
yeah. I thought the way that lady was looking over there that she thought somebody was there and they were just going to come around the outside and bust them, but they don't. So Mulder goes in. He takes off his trench coat for some reason. Probably, I don't know why. And then
Plot to make it
You don't
easier
want to
for
get
him to
clay
dive
on it.
into a tiny hole later.
I don't know. I don't know the jacket would be that much of a hindrance, but okay.
And the what's his name shows up.
Yeah, the guy that she had talked to next to the horse outside, he catches her looking through the slat. He's
Brother Andrew.
yeah, and he's like, I have information on what's going on.
And she's still kind of off a little bit off her footing because she still kind of remembers that inexplicable feeling she had their first meeting.
Hmm. And I was wondering if
Actually,
they were like, I was like, are they like vampires where they can like mind control you and stuff or whatever?
yeah, them giving them kerosene lanterns. Kerosene is actually pretty safe. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't go up like most oils.
It's not
or,
like they got gasoline
gases.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, I have kind of dogged on this episode already for its story or lack of, but they really nailed a lot of the lighting in this. There's a lot of good shots. Like when Mulder first goes in there and you see him like silhouetted from behind with all the very orange lighting, the very natural like flame lighting. Also, it made my mild claustrophobia kind of tense up a little bit and just say, nope, would never. Yep, homie, I know you're trying to do some good, but you need to really work on your looking less creepy face.
Yes. It's like they start covering the dude in clay. It actually looks like
It looks a little bit like
wax or
Vaseline mixed
something.
with grits.
That's probably what it is.
Don't ask me why that combination came to mind, but that's just where my brain went. Resting creep face.
He like gives her a name. Forget what the name
It's
is.
Martin. I called him Marty.
Martin. Okay.
Yeah.
Marty. It's like, we found these magazines and he got involved with the world.
There was always the stories of kids who found forest magazines. I never found any forest magazines as a kid.
No, me neither.
Which is probably a good thing because thinking back on it, you did not
Yeah.
want to be touching those forest magazines.
No.
See, this all looks pretty good in here. I like this set.
Yeah.
It definitely has the
There's a
vibe of some
strange
of those
light.
like underground sanctuaries that they've found that historically actually have existed.
Yeah.
Oof, Esquire, saucy.
Mulder's like, what
Yeah,
is
and some of
this
these
stuff?
and
And
some of
Mulder
this,
tastes it,
of course.
Grits and Vaseline.
Yeah. It's like, this clay is squishy. Let me lick it.
So he's like,
Yeah, that whole set
looking at
was like
this thing here.
it looked like it was like a reused like Star Trek set or something. The way it has
Just
like
kind of get that vibe, yeah.
yeah, kind of the cloth with like plaster over it to make it look like clay. And then of course you got this stretchy membrane thing. They've done that in a lot of movies. But I was expecting like a hand or something to push from the other
me
side.
too.
Yeah.
It's like, they're coming.
Yeah, so
he dives into the nearest hole.
Well, he grabs his lantern to run back out, but then somebody's coming back in. He finds himself nowhere to go, so he hides the lantern and then just head first into a hole, as one does.
Well, that's gonna get clipped.
Yeah, probably. I don't like think over what I'm about to say on my own streams when I'm trying to be
No, me
careful when
neither.
there's certain people in my chat. So let alone when when I'm elsewhere and they're not around.
Yeah. Squeaka or Nos, they'll
Yes. Or subtle.
it's like Mulder saw this guy. He looked kind of feminine.
I don't think there's anything you can do with it, Jake. It's probably just the weather interfering, but every now and then it gets hung up just a little bit on the frames before you skip ahead. So if we just get quiet,
Yeah.
it might just be because it hasn't caught up to you where you are.
Okay.
But yeah, we're
it's
still
pretty
moving because
windy.
Mulder's outside.
It's pretty windy outside.
Yeah. It's like, oh,
Like,
Scully's gone for a booty call.
Mulder's like, Scully, we don't have time for this.
Like, we would have time if it was you, Mulder.
So Scully's acting kind of drunk. So whatever they do.
Well, after the fact, she says she can't remember anything of what happened. So whatever it does. Oh, also, I think we forgot to mention this, is that so when the guy died, they said that the substance that was in his bloodstream or whatever that caused him to have the cardiac arrest was an extreme amount of pheromones.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
right, and she's like, you mean like what animals produce? And he's like, yeah, but the DNA analysis of it shows that it's human pheromones. And the fact that they were using DNA analysis in '94 is pretty good, because there were a lot of places where it still wasn't admissible, like fully as evidence, like it does now. It doesn't carry the same weight in trials that it does now, because you could do a lot less with it back then. But they were able to identify that it's a human pheromone, because she was like, well, there's still not a lot of academic study on human pheromones, and some people believe that they don't exist, they're not real. So
yeah.
Yeah, so that's what is causing everybody to kind of lose their mind, is these pheromones. And if anybody knows anything about animal pheromones, if you take like moths, like female moths will have a pheromone. If you use that, if you extract that pheromone and you can put it on something, the male moths will just attack the crap out of it. And that's how you can collect them up to like dispose of them or whatever. Or if you want to study them, you want to catch a bunch. That's what you do.
Yeah, it's all chemical trigger communication,
right?
With especially with insects and such. Like with bees, that's what'll set off a swarm. Is if you kill one of them, they smell it and then they go on the attack to defend
right.
their hive.
Or if one of them stings you,
yeah,
if one of them stings you, then that releases the pheromone as well, the attack pheromone. So
I don't know about human pheromones, but if there's one that makes you okay, if there's one that makes you tasty to mosquitoes, I definitely have it, because I can stand next to a whole bunch of other people and mosquitoes will just drain all of my blood and leave everybody else alone. Nature's weird, man.
Yeah, like who knew that Beard of Liberty tasted so sweet to the insects? Yeah.
It especially sucks because I have a bald head, and if I forget to wear a hat, it's just real estate.
I think it also has to do a lot with they're attracted to carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide, if you expel a lot of carbon monoxide.
There's a few things that I've read might set that off, but yeah, just in general. I mean, that's how you can disrupt some, like, that's why they have mothballs. because they're just so powerful smelling. It kind of overloads their senses to keep them away. So
Right.
yeah, pheromones are weird.
I always, when I was a kid, I thought that moths eating your clothes thing was a bunch of BS, but then, yeah, but it's a real thing. They'll eat the thread.
Well, they'll eat the natural threads. Once we started
Yeah.
making everything out of various forms of plastic, they don't care anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yep. It was, but yeah, I remember mothballs. I haven't seen mothballs in years. Like,
Last time I saw them was like late 90s, but they weren't being used for moths. They were trying to
Yeah.
keep, my mom was trying to keep cats out of her flower garden
oh, right. Yeah. Hmm.
and from peeing on the porch because get out, go to school in the morning, and you wouldn't even have to open the door, and you could already smell it. Damn cats.
Maybe Jacob should put some mothballs out for the raccoons.
You can just keep them distracted with the cotton candy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, what's so far in the story? At this point, I was like, okay, I kind of figured out kind of what was going on. Is these people are something about the clay is allowing them to. Now, is it the clay
Well,
like something that they did, or does the clay make them? Like the
well,
nature of the clay,
I think it's left. It's suggested that maybe the clay has more of a part to play than I think it actually does, because this guy who is left there, Marty, has left that clay behind in the scratches.
Mhm.
So it's under his fingernails, which means he would have to have been exposed to it fairly recently, but he
Right.
seems to have been gone for a while. So
Yeah,
it
I
being
figured.
in the scratches, we're kind of like left to wonder if it's like the residue of that on their hands that lets them kind of do everything.
Right, because I was like, doesn't this dude wash his hands? Like
Yeah,
if he'd been gone for a while, he shouldn't have it under there unless it was like there's certain things that can stain your skin, like inks and stuff, like permanent ink. Like if you ever
yeah,
knew anybody that accidentally used like a permanent ink instead of like when they thought would wash off, then the only way that you get are certain like fruits that the juice will stain your hands if you touch
yeah,
it or whatever. Or if you ever worked on certain vehicles that had like friction grease or anything like that, some silicone or not silicones but graphites can get on there where I mean you can scrub and it just won't come off. It
yeah.
just has to wear off. Maybe it's something like that. uh
Yeah, well, at this point, I think it was kind of left there to not just as a plot point to send them in a direction, but to maybe as us as the viewers suggest that that might be part of it. I mean, ultimately, we're going to spoil it anyway. I don't think it is. I think this is entirely them, and they just happen to have a fancy way of molding clay under the ground.
okay, like so they like created like a layer and that's where they birthed from or something, right? Like a hive
Yes,
or
because
whatever.
what we're going to get to once Mulder gets Scully back and she sobers up from
Mm,
whatever effect that guy's had on her. Um, they're going to kind of suggest that that guy has been put down there and slathered in clay to change,
right, right.
suggesting he's switching into a woman at that point.
Right. But
Which would
if
be
the
an
guy,
interesting thing is if they just kind of if these are beings that like reach the end of their life cycle as one and just get rebirthed as the other, where see this my mind started going too far with this. Hey, good night, Snort. Thanks for dropping by. Um, it kind of I went too far with this, I think, because I was thinking if that guy is sick and dying and they put him down there to be reborn as a female, and this other guy Marty has somehow found a way to switch through intercourse, that there's that French term, le petit mort, the little death. It's like, is that like the kind of like, is that his trigger for like the little death is his trigger to get reborn?
but
Because the math works with it's 2 women, 3 men, and those are and that matches up with switching each time that occurs. So it's not even
Maybe
like that
maybe
he's.
it has to just be death. Like somebody has to die in the proximity of him, or
Oh.
they caused a death, maybe, or he, I was going to say sucks the life force out of him, but maybe that's the wrong term to use.
see, and this is the stuff. I think this episode is far more interesting talking to somebody about the things and the possibilities they don't tell you, that they just
Right,
leave open.
right,
Because
right.
to just watch it on its own, it's kind of a bland episode. There's not a lot there, but it leaves enough questions that it makes kind of the discussion afterwards much more interesting than I think the actual episode is.
Mhm.
Which is, I guess, potentially part of what made the X Files such a cultural phenomenon, especially early on.
Right. Like, and we got to remember that we're so used to seasons being 8 episodes of 30 minutes each, or whatever, or it feels like so many shows these days are cut content, basically, that
Hmm.
back in the 90s and before that, and even the early 2000s, the average season for a network TV show was like 20 episodes minimum, maybe
Yeah,
18.
like
Maybe
I mean,
18, but some of them would go as far as like 26 or 28. Um,
yeah, I think the average for most of the shows I watched was about 24.
right. Right.
Um,
Yes, exactly. Like I remember Deep Space Nine was 23 or 24 episodes. But so
mhm.
we're already like invested in X Files, and it's a cultural phenomenon, but it's still finding its footing in the first season.
Oh yeah,
Um, and but I think this is why the show was so popular. And it only gets better because they are, expound upon the mysteries that are set up in the first season, and the dynamic between Scully and Mulder, and like the Smoking Man. And I thought that the Smoking Man didn't appear till much later in the series, but he was like in the very first pilot episode. So, um,
well,
and,
and even this being a kind of a weak episode, and for anybody just joining us, Jacob had to step away for a minute. That's why we're just kind of sitting here on this frame. Um, Even this being a weaker episode, you can still see the care that they put into it with, like I've said multiple times, the lighting that they kind of how they did everything, especially when you get to this little village where they don't have electric lights to light everything up, so they have to do that kind of really harsh dark lighting to also to give it that mysterious feeling as well.
did you? I don't remember seeing that many other buildings.
No, it looked like there was only like 4 buildings maximum right
Right,
there.
right. So I was like, are they all live in the same house? It's kind of weird. Um, But then also they mentioned when they were going back into the forest with the lanterns before they came back to look at them, they said, "Did you notice there are no children?"
Yeah.
And then those photos that they showed them in the shop that earlier when they went into town were from the 1930s, and then Mulder's like, some of the people that I saw in the photos look really familiar, or look the same as the people here. And then she's like, well, but they've probably been inbreeding for generations and stuff.
Hmm.
And that's when they were like, hey, you notice there are no kids.
I guess that kind of lends a little bit to what I was thinking about. When they die, they just get
Mhm.
reborn as the other gender, and then they live that, and then go back to their
Right,
previous
right,
face, and they just basically have those two bodies and faces back and forth over
exactly.
time.
And then so this guy's
Yeah.
he's super balling for the 90s because he's on a cell phone. um
Oh yeah.
and it's not one of those big 80s ones that had great big brick one. um
Yeah.
so
This is funny. This actor comes back in later seasons as like one of the main cast for a
oh
few
yeah,
episodes.
yeah.
Peter Stebbings. Oh,
Yeah, a lot of these actors that you see, so what you'll see in X Files and other shows is they're really young here, and then they become pretty regular on TV shows later, like 10, 15 years later. But you don't really recognize them uh, as
Yeah.
that. And then, or you start to see a lot of older actors in like the middle of their career that don't work anymore now, or they were like super old and at the end of their career doing shows.
yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting mix. Yeah, he's like, "Hey, I'm on the phone. Beat it." And then she touches his hand, and then he's like, "Oh man, gotta hang up."
Oh, yeah. So okay, I'm gonna do it. I know the meme is past and it's childish still, but the woman who plays female Marty, her last name is Twa.
Wow.
Yeah, she's Kate Twa, very close to not quite Hawk, but sorry. I was looking at the cast list here, and I'm like, every time I look over there, I just kind of giggle because I'm a man child.
Yeah, that was the same actor that plays
Okay.
Krychek.
Yeah, I was thinking of the wrong actor. I was trying to find that guy, but okay, yeah, then you're right. Good eye, and I mean good eye, not as in good day in Australia.
I'm just like, what were you doing?
It's like
I don't
I don't
remember.
know. I don't know how I got here.
Missing time.
There, sorry. I'm having to hold back really stupid groan-inducing dad jokes because I'm pretty sleep deprived over the last couple of days, guys. I haven't been
Oh,
able
come
to
on,
sleep.
let him loose.
So yeah. I was gonna say I don't know. Somebody slightly sloped a roofie slightly sloped a roofie to me. Sorry, in my head, go to slope the roof and but up. See, it's terrible
Yeah,
jokes.
but
This happens when I get tired. My stream after this, when I'm playing games, is going to be a mess. I'm just telling you.
So now he's asking like, "What happened?" And she's like, "I can't remember."
So they're like,
And then yeah,
this guy's saved by a policeman.
yeah. So she took
With the
she took it out to the car, and then he's like, "Hey, knock it off. That's enough." And now he's having like a heart attack, and he's like, "Oh."
But the deed's only half done,
he
but
looks up and
apparently
goes,
enough to
"Oh my
get the
God."
switch.
Right, because he turns into a dude and then knocks the cop out.
I just had a thought. I'm wondering if this is like the in X-Files universe, like explanation for the incubus and succubus myths.
Maybe.
I feel like this guy's been in some stuff too. Other shows and whatever.
Well, basically,
Yeah.
if you were an actor in British Columbia and did anything sci-fi, you did everything sci-fi.
Right. So now the question can be like, yeah, so where'd you meet him and stuff? And then he's like, I feel like you're holding back a little something.
Yeah, he's like, come on, you can tell us. He's like off the record, and he's like, yes, off the record.
He was like a dude. It was a dude, man.
It was a dude, man.
Yeah. Well, actually said it was a woman, and
this
then
ain't a woman. It's a man, man.
It's a man. Yeah.
That I know this is a trope, but that guy looks like he's got the same look that some sailors would get after they came back from Thailand. I mean, okay, jokes aside, that would be a shock to anybody's system, especially if you've been in the club and had a couple of drinks and didn't necessarily know exactly everything that you'd been doing.
Everybody,
and your memories would be fuzzy.
Before you go to a place like that, if you're in the military, everybody warns you. You heard the story. So somebody's fault but your own if you get taken for a ride.
Yep.
Yeah. Or you have really bad people looking out for you, helping out.
And that's the line that I put in the group chat earlier. Oh, what was it? That I can't see the entire line because YouTube would hate it. Because she uses a certain word that definitely would get flagged. But she says, "How else can you explain a woman overpowering a 200-pound cop? she was a he, based Agent Scully.
She was a he, man. And man, this guy gets busy because he's already back to a woman again,
Yeah.
and then back to a
Yeah,
man.
so it doesn't really explain like how they're like, can they change at will? Is there something that triggers it? Do they gotta like eat a bunch of bananas or something? You know, drink clay, whatever. So
Yeah, it is pretty vague. I mean, I guess you could say that the deed wasn't entirely completed, so the transformation back to man wasn't permanent. But then we get this because, okay, never mind. Yeah, I totally forgot this. Yeah, already
well,
found
it
another
also
victim.
doesn't. There could have like they don't say how much time has elapsed, so this could be a week later
That's true.
or something.
Yeah.
Poor Scully's got stuck with a 38.
Yeah. She gets knocked over onto a dead body.
Yeah. And we've got to remove her from some of the story so she can still be disbelieving of things.
Right. So basically, she turns into a dude, runs out, punches out Mulder, and then runs out into the alleyway. And again, this was shot most likely on a real rainy day. Like they
Yeah,
didn't,
you can
know,
see it raining in
yeah.
the puddles.
Right. They didn't like have a rain machine going or anything. Because there's really no reason for it. And then all of a sudden, all of these, I'm just going to call it a cult, all the cult people show up and surround the guy.
Because,
And
like they said
it's
earlier,
a dude wearing women's underwear that look like a diaper.
yeah. Once he transforms back into a dude, he doesn't have the booty to fill out.
I guess. I mean, to me, it didn't look like she was really packing all that much in the trunk, but still.
I like the fact that Scully's got her gun pointed at them, and she just keeps yelling, "I'm armed." Yes, honey, we can see.
It was dark out. Maybe
Yeah.
they didn't understand.
But yeah, and like they said earlier with the guy that was sick, they say we take care of our own, which is applicable in both situations. It's taking care of, but it's also taking care of when somebody needs to be dealt with.
And then they just kind of disappear into the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
They set up like a 10-block radius, and there was like no way they could have got out. And then, but there's no sign of them.
Yeah, and Mulder says basically however they got through, there's only one place they're going to go.
Yeah.
You can see that rain in the background. Must have been a miserable night shoot.
Then now all of a sudden people can drive out there.
Well, look, they're in SUVs.
Well, they have 4-wheel drive. Yeah, they have the trucks from Jurassic Park. So they get there and nobody's home.
It's like, I wonder where they went. And then they're like, oh, look what we found out in the field. Because he goes to open this and it's just a giant wall of concrete or
clay.
I kind of wondered if it was the clay, if they like had some sort of way to manipulate it. So they weren't like necessarily making the pots like we would think making the pots. So they were able to basically just like collapse their tunnels and seal everything up using whatever technology or magic or whatever, however you want to define it. But
So
this is a nice, like, just solid. We're gonna leave the question.
Look, it's a crop circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aliens. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
Yeah, the guy with the hair. Yeah. What if I can't believe the History Channel turned into that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, they had some good stuff on that channel.
Yeah, back in the day. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, it was a bit of a nothing burger of an ending.
Yeah.
There
It
wasn't
was.
a lot of meat on that episode in general.
Mm-mm.
I think it was more
Yeah.
for setting tone. Okay, if whether or not this was intentional, I think that episode does a good job of setting the tone for the series overall for maybe somebody who
Yeah.
wasn't that familiar with it.
Yeah.
Right. It was a so the thing about the X-Files for most of the seasons, at least in the first couples, at least in the first season anyway, is each episode is kind of standalone. They don't like tie together. Like you don't have to have seen the two previous in order to figure out what's going on in this one. Other than
Yes.
kind of the social and character interactions um between like Sculler and Mulder and other returning characters. Because most of the time there's never a callback to like what
Right.
happened two episodes previously. They're never like doing this investigation. They're like, well, remember what happened in, episode 9, this happened. They almost never do that. You almost never see the same people again. Like other than like the smoking man and maybe their boss or something, you never see recurring agents or cops or anything, at least in season 1.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what and forgive me because I'm probably going to say this wrong. That's what Sadako said. It's season 1 in some ways most accessible season because there's less impenetrable arc stuff. So yeah, you didn't
Yeah.
necessarily need to know what happened at the previous episodes.
Mm-hmm. Right. In a way, kind of Star Trek's like that in a little bit, at least the next generation and the original.
a lot of shows that find their more longevity are like that because you need to have that accessibility early on so that you can bring more viewers in, and once you have the viewership and you have more guaranteed
Mhm.
seasons from the network, then you can work in those bigger
Right.
story arcs.
Right. But like
Yeah.
I know DS9 and like Babylon 5 were not like that. Like you had to understand what was going on, and especially Babylon 5 and some later episodes, you have had to watch the previous ones to even know what was
Yep.
going on. So
Yeah. So this one is Lazarus.
This one's pretty good.
Kind of ancient. Yeah, it is.
Although I will immediately criticize the fact that Scully there's very clearly staking out the bank because they've got a clue that something's going to happen here. And if you're going to do that, you've got a big jacket on. You can hide your gun under the jacket. Don't put it in your
Exactly.
briefcase. Off-body carry is a terrible idea, people. There's your gun tip for the evening.
Yeah.
If you're going
Wait.
to have it on you.
I didn't notice that. I guess I might have been.
It's kind of a blink and you miss it thing in a second. Like she opens her case to put like a slip like a slip in or something like that, and yeah, at least unless I'm really misremembering, she's got her gun in there.
This dude's supposed to be
Yeah,
in his 30s.
Right there.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Why wouldn't you carry it in a holster? What are you doing?
Bad idea. But yeah, the guy she's with apparently, we'll get to it, but I kind of didn't buy well, as we find out, they had dated for about a year, but he was also her instructor at one point, and I couldn't help but thinking that that's a potentially, shall we say,
Yeah,
icky relationship.
Well,
That's how you get fired.
unless
Yeah.
unless it was after,
Hey, sassy.
like even then though.
Well, yes.
But
I
yeah,
mean,
after she graduated and became a full agent, then they started like dating or whatever.
yeah, it would have to be after, otherwise he was risking his career. But still,
It
it's just
was the
that
90s.
that always kind of like seems weird to me because I know people like to throw these words around a lot now for things that it doesn't apply to, but power dynamic can make interpersonal relationships complicated.
Yeah. So this we kind of got a Bonnie and Clyde situation here.
Yes.
Crazy people with guns robbing banks.
The good old days. before Bitcoin scams.
Keep an eye on that tattoo that shows up later.
Yeah, they definitely linger on it very intentionally right there. It's not subtle.
Yeah. It's like, did you see the tattoo? Did you see it like yet?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, but then they obscure it with shadows and stuff.
Yeah, I think so. It felt like they were being a little bit sneaky with it. They definitely weren't. Yeah.
I don't know what kind of shotgun that is with that big odd handle.
Oh, I didn't look it up ahead of time. I should have.
Did you see the pump action has a handle on it, like a where you, like
Yeah.
a guard or something?
That's weird.
I don't know if it's a carry handle or if it's a guard or what that is. And then
I mean, it's probably some just weird aftermarket swap for the.
has it got a pistol? It's got like an assault pistol grip, but no shoulder stock.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they have shotguns like that, but then
Yeah.
doesn't it have something
Mhm.
hanging off the? It was kind of hard to see.
That is weird. I mean,
Well, he's
back
got
in the day, they
like
would
a
take
round
some
holder
aftermarket.
on the back end.
Yeah. They would sometimes just take weird aftermarket gun accessories that never really took off just to make something look different sometimes.
Yeah. Make it look cool.
I don't know. Maybe it's the only
See,
kind
Scully?
of shotgun.
If you had your gun on your person, you could have gotten to this guy right here when he's got his back turned
Yeah.
to you.
I know this is nitpicking. But the way he's like, he pulls his gun out, freeze, and turns at him. That's when you shoot him, right there.
Yep.
Well, the fact that
Right
this
there.
guy just
Bam,
busts
bam.
in and then the reaction time on the guard is terrible.
Yeah.
And he like knocks him out or whatever. Yeah. So if this was modern day America, as soon as that guy pulled the gun out, they probably would have shot him. Like once they had their guns out, they just put him down.
Yeah.
They didn't have a clear shot behind him.
Depending on your state and local everything and how things are interpreted, let me put it that way. This is not at all legal advice. If somebody's pointing, at least in my area, if someone's pointing a gun at somebody, they don't have to necessarily be facing you for you to be in the clear.
These are cops, so
yes,
they can just be like, nah, it's line of duty.
Yep.
And Scully blinked.
You got to remember, this was also before that whole LA bank robbery where the guys had the body armor and the AKs and stuff. And
that was Miami, right?
No, that was LA. That was LA.
Okay, never mind. Yeah.
And the cops, all they had were shotguns and 9mm, so they couldn't penetrate their body armor. And they had to like run to a gun store and get heavier guns.
Yeah.
So that particular instance, right, is why cops started carrying like AR-15s and higher caliber weapons in their vehicles with them. For that exact reason, because those guys just had drum magazines and they were just mowing down everybody. And there was nothing the cops could do. They were shooting with 9mm. It wasn't even affecting them.
Scully's pulling the doctor card here, telling him to keep going.
Right.
And it's
nice
before we get the camera right on his body reacting to the defibrillator that's not on him, you can see it affecting him in the background a few times. And it's a nice little touch because your attention mostly is going to be on the foreground action. It's a little thing, but it's nice cinematography to kind of reward the viewer for noticing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to point out that this dude that they're trying to save took buckshot to the chest, and the other guy took at best 380 to the gut, and that's what took him out. Like he took one shot.
Yeah.
I think she pulled the trigger 3 times.
Oh, did she? I thought it was once.
Oh, yeah, she put a few in. But they keep showing this tattoo, but they never
rounds, not just well, they were well placed rounds though. They weren't just
Yeah.
like a shotgun blast. They were.
Yeah. I mean,
And she
depending
did the
on where
right thing.
it
She didn't
lands, you
shoot him.
can.
She didn't try and shoot him in the leg.
Yeah. We'll just say that she found the off button.
Yes.
It technically
She
will only take one if you hit the off button.
She made a new lead deposit in the bank. Yeah, he wakes up
2
not
days later.
himself.
Yeah, this says 2 days later. So he must not have been hurt that bad. He's going to get up and start walking around.
Pain meds.
Yeah. And you know his midsection is still kind of messed up because later on we see him bleeding through a shirt just from walking around.
Like at this point in the show, I already knew what was going on.
Yeah. I mean,
They never
that
really
pretty much tells you what when they were zapping him and the other guy's body was jumping.
And they kept showing the tattoo, but they never really explained like where did he get it? Like some, did he get it in Chinatown or something? Were the same at the Mugwai shop?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they just needed some weird identifier. But I mean, even at this point, if you don't really know, like when he looks at his reflection, this is at this point, we know everything we need to know about what is happening, just not necessarily how. So that's the rest of the episode is basically Mulder trying to find out how, and Scully denying the reality around her, like she's very good at doing.
It's like you can't get the the thing off, so he just cuts the fingers.
Oh yeah, he goes for his wedding band. That would have to be really disconcerting. Not only waking up in somebody else's body, but looking at your dead body and then deciding to just go ahead and chop off the fingers so you can get your wedding ring back. It's basically they get called in because not only is he missing, but he, then now they've got this. He's apparently not behaving himself because he didn't check in with anybody. He's snuck out, and then appears to have mutilated this other body.
Yeah,
because
he's gone a little crazy and he's taking souvenirs.
Yeah, because
gonna make a necklace.
Snip. Although I don't understand why he had to cut more fingers off than just the one. That didn't make any sense.
Well, I think because he couldn't.
You can get this. Why you can get the shears in there?
I think to get to leverage on them, you would want to get them the finger all the way in as far into the shears as possible, which means you couldn't open them necessarily as wide as you would between rigor mortified fingers. So he just took the easy way and took the pinky, the ring finger, and I'm assuming nicked the middle finger just because it was, accidentally.
Oh, maybe he cut them like all at the same time or something.
Yeah, because he was just trying to get the wedding ring, and I think it was just a convenience and a speed thing, so he could get out of there and on the move.
And Mulder knows exactly what's going on here.
Oh yeah. Which this entire thing being that middle ground, that veil between life and death, and making your mind, body, or spirit vulnerable to other things is something that's been around for a long time. And it's not just that; it's a lot of people historically would have that belief that any transitional space makes you vulnerable to like spirits or something like that. That's why you don't stand in doorways, because that's a transitional space.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the theme for this entire thing, is that he was stuck there between life and death for a little bit and vulnerable. And while his, because we, I think they touch on it at some point, people having out of body experiences. And if you're having an out of body experience and then some other entity or mind decides to take over your body, do you just get stuck out there and you can't come back?
I guess this was
Right.
back when he was a guard at a prison.
He was a prison guard at a women's prison, which is where he met
Yeah.
Lulu, or whatever her name is.
Right.
Lula.
This is back when they had male guards at female prisons.
They still do, I think.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. You especially need them now.
Yeah.
They actually got dudes in women's prisons.
Yeah, right.
You would think, I think most people would think that it wouldn't be super common for a corrections officer or prison guard to fall for somebody that they were, that was in there for whatever law they broke. But I think it's a lot more common than anyone would like to admit. My brother is a corrections officer, and he has told stories of certain people who have to be reassigned and banned from certain tanks because they started getting a little too friendly with somebody in there. Well, isn't that a weirdly localized and shaped rash he's developing?
Yeah, right.
Which I don't think they needed this part of the story, because that takes you out of everything else that's happening, because a tattoo is not part of your personality and it's not part of your body. It's something you add to it later on.
And also it starts making it seem like maybe the tattoo is the reason, is what I was thinking, like magic or something.
Yeah.
And it kind of throws you off of like what's going on, because they never explain it. Like, they never showed where he got it. They never bring it up. They're like, oh, he's got the tattoo when he got it when he went to Tibet.
Yeah.
Saw the bullheaded lady from Dr.
I can't even remember if Mulder or
Strange.
Scully ever
Dr.
actually
Strange.
acknowledged the fact that he has a weird tattoo. I don't think they ever do.
Nope, they never talk about it at all. That's what I'm saying. So now it's a thing, and it's showing up, and this is like, what's okay? So we're like, you notice anything weird about when he was dying? And it's like, it could be a problem with the machine. And he's like, it looks like 2 heartbeats to me. He's like, is that what it looks like? And she's like, well, yeah. So.
But Scully's got a Scully and not believe anything until the very end. And then, even then, not really admit to it. Yeah, so they go see Oswald Cobblepot. I'm sorry, this guy, this professor. Professor Varnes.
He's been on a few Stargates, hadn't he?
I'll look him up.
I think so.
And like I said earlier, if you were doing sci-fi during this period, you basically did all sci-fi.
Yeah. He's like, he gives this thing that a pilot crashed a commercial jet, and he was the only survivor. He started having memories of sleeping with his wife in places they'd never been before.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Somebody else on the plane was having an affair with his wife and got his memories. That's weird. Scully's like, where does Mulder dig these people up?
Yeah, because you just know that Mulder's got an entire file of people that, at least partially will justify whatever he's arguing.
Yeah. But they're not like he is. He's like in several different things wacky, These guys are like specific to the thing he's looking at.
And yes, that professor there, that actor, he was Harlan in a couple of episodes SG-1 and Lord Protector in an episode of Atlantis, and he was in a lot of other like one-off episodes for a lot of other shows over the last couple decades.
This guy was my favorite character in this episode. He just did such a great job. He's kind of creepy looking too, but you know what I mean? He looks like the kind of guy that would go like down a rabbit hole on some sciencey stuff.
And he tells her something, when people die, their watch will short out because it's like an electrical pulse.
If they have a near-death experience, like if they've died and been revived, right. They say they've like been down the tunnel of light and all this kind of stuff, is that they're changed. And he goes through the ways that they're changed, different personality traits, that kind of stuff. But a lot of them can't wear a watch anymore because it just won't work. Although on a wind-up watch, I'm not really sure how that functions, but if it's like a digital one or something with a battery in it.
Yeah, wind-up would be fine. That just uses spring tension.
Yep. Especially if they have one of those high-end ones that where if you just move your arm while you walk, it winds for you.
This actor too, he was Leoben in the Battlestar Galactica reboot.
Yep. He was a Cylon.
Yeah, and he was also in Star Trek Discovery, I think. Not that I watched it.
Oh.
Howdy, Zax. Thanks for dropping by.
Was you that like that's just a side character?
He was some officer in Star Trek Discovery, I think, but he was a Cylon in one of the main human Cylons in Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
I've seen him in a couple other things too. He does a pretty good job of playing like a kind of a greasy-looking, creepy guy.
A series called Due South. I don't know if y'all recognize that.
No,
I never saw it.
It's actually pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not bad. It involves a Chicago looking for the murderer of his father or something. It's pretty good. It's kind of a comedy.
Oh, well, he also did a string of episodes with David Duchovny in Californication. Anyway, moving on. I don't need to chase IMDb rabbit holes while we're live.
So he's got this like 1950s TV. The sound don't work on it. I mean,
it's really old TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, if I remember correctly, this is the brother of
the
wife of the guy who is taken over this agent's body.
Right. It's Lula's brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like, you sold us out. And that's how come I got shot. And he's like, where is she?
It's like, you're bleeding, man.
It's like, now you are too. Pop.
Yep. Goes the weasel.
And look, even if that's an old building and those are heavy wooden doors, that shot would have been a lot louder in the hallway.
Yeah, right. And they found him fast, too.
Neighbors heard a gunshot, called it in.
Yep.
And I'm assuming because this was a relative of somebody who was involved in that bank robbery, that's why they were connected to it. And so, yeah, Scully's still trying to figure out why this guy, Jack Willis, is behaving so erratically. And Mulder's piecing clues together, like, asking if the TV was on when they came in, because based on where the body was found, it looks like he was watching TV, so somebody must have turned it off afterwards.
Yeah.
And then Willis shows up and he's got no ID and behaving weird and has no explanation for exactly why he's been away for a while. I like the
You're not supposed
background,
to
just
be
like
here.
as they walk away, you just hear, "Just doing my job, sir." It's like, yeah, that sounds about right. You got to get that last jab in there. Oh, and it's not a Mulder tie, but I guarantee if Roman was here, he'd point out that tie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Those 90s ties.
Not only does it look like the floor of a hotel lobby, it's extra shiny and silky too.
And there were only a
Yeah.
certain kind of people that wore that kind of stuff. They were like DC people or whatever. Like, I don't remember normal people wearing ties like that. You know what I mean? They had to be more
Yeah.
like corporate kinds or something like that. I don't remember lawyers wearing
Yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, not that I knew a lot of lawyers, but I don't know. During this time period, I had to wear a uniform every day. So
I don't know. You and Roman have been around long enough. You probably remember when people would just tie the entrails of their enemies around their neck.
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess, and you, Jake. I'm the
But
youngest
see,
one
look,
here.
Mulder has a decent tie on now. See, look at that. It's nothing crazy. He could wear that today and it would fit in.
I don't know. Let's wait till we get closer up.
Hey, Republic started back in the, Greeks and Romans, so you're probably
Yeah.
old too.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely feel it some days. Since we're critiquing ties, the colors are not great on the guy, the dude on the right, but at least it's muted.
I don't. Right. I don't know what.
At least it's muted.
Well, at least it's not wild pattern.
It almost looks like
Yeah.
a '70s tie.
I was about to say it looks like it's
Yeah.
something he's had for like
Yeah, it
20
does.
years.
Yeah, exactly. I got this in 1978. Although he should be wearing, in that case, he should be
Got
wearing
that.
like a mustard color shirt.
His
Go
shirt
with
is kind of an off-white though.
Yeah.
Maybe an eggshell or stucco.
He's also got a thicker knot,
Yes.
a Windsor, I believe.
I only know one way to tie a tie, and I almost never wear one. Last time I did, I got my beard tied in it. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah, I very rarely tied a tie. I would just leave them tied.
Yeah. What you do, I actually years and years. Okay, we're little fashion aside here while they're pulling a fingerprint off that TV, and this guy's getting worried because he knows whose fingerprint it is. I back in the day there was a website. It probably still is around called How to Tie a Tie, and it was for all of us internet kids that didn't grow up tying ties. I say all of us. I got the internet when I was in middle school, but yeah, it's like I never wear a tie. Even today, I'm 41. I don't think I've worn a tie other than once in the last decade.
Yeah.
But anyway, but they yeah, we kind of glossed over earlier because the agent Willis is right-handed, and the guy that died in the bank shootout is left-handed. And then they kind of gloss over that themselves story-wise. It's kind of a little bit of a throwaway line that Mulder sees it but nobody else really believes. And then we cut to this and he is shooting with his left hand. It's
That's
a nice
why
touch.
he's weird. He's a lefty.
Yeah. Crazy lefties. Although another gun tip for the evening: if you're gonna carry one for self-defense, practice with your offhand, because you never know when something's gonna happen to your good hand.
Right.
Yeah, so by this point he's passed like a physical evaluation, a psych evaluation, and then he's like, I got to practice with my gun so I can get my gun back.
Yeah, it's all this reevaluation to make sure his head's okay. Mulder's like, I don't think you
Yeah.
have to worry about that.
He Riggs did a better job. He drew a smiley face.
Oh, that's only 9 rounds out of a Beretta. You should have a couple more in there.
Yeah. He's like, it's Scully's birthday. Here, write it in here.
Yes, because again, another nice little detail that's easy to overlook is that Scully earlier on the episode mentioned they have the same birthday. And it's like, oh yeah, and signs it with his left hand. No problem. No, it's my birthday too, or it's not her birthday. No comment.
It's not my birthday. Huh. Well,
We might
what's
be
his name thinks
stuck.
it is?
We might be stuck on this side of the video, Jacob. We're still looking at him, looking at his target.
Oh, okay. Is it changed yet?
Yes, I see birthday card. We're good.
Okay, good. Welcome, Arturitas.
Arturitas. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he tosses it down to Scully. It's like, hey, happy birthday. You're 2 months early. Well, funny. Somebody didn't know that. And signed it with his left hand. It's actually a nice little trick to try to get somebody, even if it's not tricking about birthday dates or whether they sign with their left or right hand, just to get somebody to try to forge a signature like that on the spot. Because if it's not practiced, even people who are decent at forgeries, I've heard one person say you have to treat it more like you're doing a drawing and not a signature. Because if you do it as a signature, all your normal like pen strokes and things will come out. So you have to treat it like you're tracing a drawing. And even then, it's noticeable to people who are really good at picking things out like that. But
man, even Mulder's shoulder pads here, ginormous.
yeah, it doesn't help that he's sitting down and he definitely slouched down and it's riding up in the back.
He's got one of those wingsuits underneath it.
Yeah, those 90s suits really didn't do anybody any favors over time.
No.
I wonder if the suits in the 50s had shoulder pads in them. Because you know how they had that cut where you had the really broad shoulders, but then the waist was kind of tight?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe just everybody had squarer shoulders back then. They had Zaxian shoulders.
Yeah, I know. I kind of feel like it. that was the case.
They had less soy in their diet back then.
Yeah, that look on Mulder's face right there is just like, now you have to believe me. Come on. Nothing matches up here.
And she just explains it away like, eh.
Yeah, it's like trauma makes people do all sorts of weird things and behaviors
Yeah, trauma
change.
makes somebody shoot. Pass a test with your gun left-handed. It makes you do weird things.
It's also not clear what kind of memories he had. Like he's sharing memories, so he has access to both of them, I guess, fully maybe, or not so much.
Yeah,
But he'll like know
I
things
Yeah.
um, from each life, basically.
yeah, I was
Which is
wondering. I didn't necessarily get so much the impression that uh, Jack's memory was still in there. I was kind of wondering if it was kind of leaning into the idea of genetic memory. Like,
well. At one point I thought, what if they're sharing control? Like the way that he acted when he first showed up to the crime scene and was like, "Hey, I'm here, da da da," and all this stuff.
oh
I
yeah,
thought maybe he didn't realize that he was being controlled by the other guy, by the
I
dead
mean, he
guy,
could only
right?
he had to have access to some memories in order to
Right.
pass off as being who he the special agent Willis, but he couldn't have all the memories because he didn't remember when Scully's birthday is.
Right. See,
Yeah.
that's where it kind of throws me off. And then, so is it this other guy pretending to be him the whole time, but with access to his memories, he can kind of
Yeah.
act the part. You know what I mean? It just,
I think
it's not
the
very
bad
clear.
guys overpowers him more
hmm
than him.
Right. But what I'm
So
saying
it kind of
is
goes in and out. It
is
seems
the other
like.
guy's consciousness even in there, or is it just his memories? So it's not like the real Willis is long dead, and this other guy is just pretending to be him, or is it actually part of Willis is in there, like his personality and whatever, and the other guy in there kind of fighting for it, or you know what I mean? Like,
I think it's probably
Yeah.
just the memories. It's kind of like buying a secondhand computer and they didn't wipe the hard drive. So you're in charge of it now, but not everything in there necessarily makes sense to you. It's some weird family photos.
right, okay,
Yeah.
so they never really explain it. So
Yeah. Which I'm kind of okay with, especially early on in the X Files. The questions, like I said about the previous episode, it's the discussions that are actually more interesting than if they were to just tell you exactly what's happening.
Does this guy have his grandma's shirt on? Or is that a Hawaiian shirt?
It definitely looks like a floral sweater.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's looks like a Hawaiian shirt.
they're trying to track down Lula.
Yeah.
For investigative purposes, I'm sure.
Right. There she is.
Well, surprise,
Yeah,
surprise, surprise.
Scully does pretty good here against this lady.
Yeah. Again, that like trademark this early X Files like dramatic, harsh lighting. I love it.
Yeah. He pulls his handcuffs out, and Scully's like, "I already handcuffed him. Oh, these are for you. Put them on."
Yeah. And then both of the ladies are confused because nobody knows what's going on except for him.
Yeah.
And he's barely in control, it seems. So he might not even necessarily know 100% what's going on. Yeah, and he's trying to convince her who he actually is. Naming off events and things that are her favorite, this, that, and the other.
Thank you.
It's a good thing we don't have radiators too many places anymore because everybody would just be getting stuck to them.
Yeah.
Pretty sure my grandparents' house had a radiator for a bunch of my childhood. Not that it was ever used.
Yeah, you used to go to a church that had radiators everywhere.
Wow.
They're actually they work pretty good.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, they do.
and
Imagine.
it's just hot water run through it.
And I just want to point out to anybody watching, I'm pretty certain that StreamYard has decided to stay on the picture of the lady in her bra and not Jacob. Jacob, we're stuck
Oh
on the picture of the
man,
lady in her bra.
man.
Thanks, StreamYard.
Yeah, it's all right. It's just like she had a bikini on. We're fine.
Yeah,
Like a
it's
bathing
not
suit.
bad. It was funny that it stopped there. I'm like, I need to say something and defend Jacob so people don't think he's just leering
I
this,
didn't
this
actually
woman.
even think anything about it. I was like, it didn't even register to me. You know what I mean? It was just another scene in the show.
I mean, that my brain kind of works that way when I'm thinking of like how other people are going to perceive things. I've been like
I
that a
mean,
bunch of my life.
if you think about it, why
Is
did
it
the show
updated?
even have her do it?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, it's
We're
updated.
good.
Why did the show
Okay.
even have her change? It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, like there was no point for it. Unless it was
But
going to show
I
like
mean,
she had a tattoo or something
to
like
have
that.
her change into a different shirt if they're going to leave Scully, it would make sense if they're going to leave Scully and she wants to blend in with a different look other than what she was caught in, so the description might not match. But it didn't necessarily need to happen, especially on camera. But we all know why they put that in there. It was the 90s.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's the 90s, but it's the 90s. She's like trying to convince her, it's me, I'm your husband, right?
Yeah, look, here's my wedding band that I cut off my own hand. But I think this just about to the point where she just like, I can't stand you. I'm the one that tipped everybody off.
Yeah. Exactly. Is this more of your spooky stuff, Mulder? He's like, we both want the same thing. That pretty much sets them up.
Yep. Oh yeah, she hadn't said anything about turning or being the one to tip him off yet, because this is where he calls to gloat a little
Man,
bit.
would you look at that brick? He's got a brick held up to his face. That's actually not as bad as they used to be. They're like
Oh yeah.
3 times that size.
I mean, the battery life on
I
that,
wonder
on
if
that
they
phone
have
right there was probably like an hour.
Yeah. I wonder if they have the game Snake on there.
It's government issue. They probably didn't want to have him playing Snake.
No. I can remember the first cell phone I interacted with had Snake on it. And it was like the little
Yeah.
pixel one.
Yeah, I had they were small enough when I got my first cell phone that they called them a candy bar phones. They were a little bit larger than like a candy bar. It was a
Mhm.
Nokia. Had an interchangeable faceplate. Got myself a shiny blue one.
I remember that before smartphones came out, the trend was for phones to get smaller and smaller, and more
Yes.
compact, to the point that in that movie Zoolander, he had that little tiny phone.
This little bitty
Like
phone,
the
yes.
most modern, like up to date version, and they were trying to make phones more compact. But then once they came out with the smartphone, then they started getting bigger again because people needed a screen to see what was going on, and you couldn't really
Mhm.
do flip phones anymore or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think the trade-off is fine because you can do so much more on a smartphone. It's
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Stuff that you can do on a phone, especially these days. Basically, a computer. You could do this stream from your phone. You know,
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could handle like the slideshow and everything at the same time, but eventually that's coming. You know.
Yeah.
So but it's pretty
Scully's
crazy.
trying to remind him who he is. So she's bringing up old things that have happened.
So I also didn't like this kind of this reveal that's coming up here. Because if this was the case, he would have figured it out a long time ago. It wouldn't be a surprise to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of got the idea that, because he was so madly in love with her that he went back and cut off the finger of his dead body to get to his wedding ring. So I think he was probably just blind to the fact that, because you get that in plenty of relationships where somebody's done and maybe other people can see it, but the other half
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about him drinking the sodas and stuff.
Okay.
If this dude was,
yeah.
She's like, how many of you drank? You're diabetic. And he's like, what?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Trust me, he would have went off the rails a long time ago. With his physical evaluation, they would have asked him, "Hey, how's your diabetes doing?" Matter of fact,
it's been
unless it was controlled, I don't even think he'd let him be an agent, really. You know what I mean? If it's bad enough.
Yeah, because just in the 2 days that he was like, or the even just a full day without any kind of insulin or in controlling of what you ate, most people, even with like mild diabetes, would have a serious problem.
That might be the thing. It could have been controllable with diet, and he just went like totally off the rails. And so the insulin was needed to kind of bring him back down because he just ate so much. If he's constantly eating candy bars and stuff, he's like, man, I'm craving sugar, and drinking sodas and whatever all day. And they showed him and he had like a big chocolate ring around his mouth. Then maybe that could explain why he didn't know. Because if you have, like pre-diabetes or whatever, you can kind of get away with not using insulin. You don't have to check your blood sugar all the time. You just got to watch what you eat.
But if it's bad enough that she's that legitimately concerned over him having one soda, it seems like it's pretty serious. Which is, it's weird that I just completely blocked that little bit of story out of my mind because I was too busy thinking about all the other things that were going on that I found to be much more interesting.
The impression that I got is he'd been pounding him because he's like, is this the last one? And she's like, yeah, we're all out. You drank the other ones. And she's like, wait, how many of those did you have? You're diabetic. And then he's like, what? And then, so this adds like a whole new, I don't know. I somehow he would have known. You know what I mean?
I think I would have.
It would have come up.
He was just shot with buckshot. I would have just made it, complications to that.
Yeah.
Instead of
because like I said, that whole like point just got my brain.
I get where they're going with it, like plot wise, but it just the fact that he didn't know that he was. What they should have had was it should have just been something they brought up. He didn't need to be pounding sugar or anything, and just start having, like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh crap, I'm out, and then
I just got the impression that this consciousness that took over his body was keeping him alive longer than he had to, and that later on, it reached the point. It's kind of like in The Crow. Eventually, it's at one point the spirit says, basically like your job's done. I'm not going to keep you alive anymore. I kind of got that feeling like that was kind of what was happening here. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together with the diabetes thing. I just threw that out as a non-story plot point. I think that actually would have been a little bit more interesting if it just kind of looked like all the injuries that he had that nearly killed him just finally did. But then I guess it would be weird that he was up running around and not tearing stitches open and such. But they're trying to figure out where they are because they couldn't trace the phone because it was from Scully's cell phone, which even then I'm pretty sure they could do some basic tower triangulation, especially because there weren't as many towers, so you wouldn't be as specific.
Then I'm not sure if they could, with the equipment that guy has, that's a line tapper. He couldn't tap cell phones with that.
Well, yeah, you can't tap cell phones.
Or I mean,
but,
triangulate
yeah,
where they're at. Yeah, you couldn't do like an old wiretap kind of thing. They just so I don't know. I would have thought the FBI would have had that. Now, if it's like a local police department, maybe not at that time, but
yeah. I mean, they've got
Yeah.
the technology though to pull out the tiniest little bit of airplane audio in a little bit though. I mean that is on the verge of CSI zoom and enhance to me.
So this is where we find out she's the one who set him up.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not going to give you the insulin. She smashes the insulin bottle. Can y'all hear me?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Kind of cut out there, right? I kind of cut out there, I think.
no, you can't. You came through clear.
Okay.
I thought you had more to say. So,
No.
has this actress been in other stuff? Is she like in Star
Yeah,
Trek?
she
or something?
looks familiar.
Yeah.
She got an interesting first name. It's spelled CEC.
Yes. CEC.
Yeah. Let's see, she's done a lot of one-offs around the same period of time, but she didn't have anything after 2001.
She's still alive?
I don't know. I'll look that up while we keep going.
Yeah, maybe
she
just
doesn't have a death.
retired.
Doesn't have a death listed on IMDb.
Okay. Yeah, maybe she just retired when it moved on to something else, like directing or something.
And it looks like she just never really hit it big. She just, like I said, did a bunch of one-offs on random TV shows.
So what are they filtering out here? I don't remember.
It's sound.
Airplane audio.
Right. So they had the conversation recorded with Scully, and they're trying, the old, I can hear a train in the background or whatever. And that's what they're trying to do. And it turns out it's an airplane taking off sound, like a prop plane. And then on the map, there was a little airport symbol. And so they're like, it's going to be in this area because this is where the flight path goes for takeoffs and landings. So it was like a big kind of triangle looking area.
I don't remember if they specified it in the episode. I think I want to give them credit for doing it. But you would have to know at the time of day which direction the wind was going, because the direction that the takeoff and landings happen will be different based on if the wind shifts. Because you want to do both into the wind. So yeah.
But the sound guy, he had all that info.
I do like the fact that he made it the search area a triangle because obviously once the plane takes off, unless they have instructions to fly the runway vector a certain distance before they can turn off, then like we see right here. And I think at first I thought it was weird that he was able to specify it sounds like it's taking off, but no, that does make sense because the engine would be under a lot more a higher RPM and a lot more strain as opposed to when you're landing, when it's pretty close to idle. You're just staying just above stall speed. Not that I'm a pilot. I just watch airplane things on YouTube. Weirdo.
Yeah. So Scully gets through to him here. Finally.
See, I think this would have been a lot better if because the way I was interpreting it when I was watching it, if it was just both the consciousness that's taken over the body and the body are like their time is just running out as opposed to being some weird diabetic reaction.
Yeah.
I think it would have had a little bit more punch. But I guess having the lack of insulin gives that room for doubt for Scully,
I-
and she can
Oh.
use that as an excuse as to why his behavior has been so off the last couple days.
I like the use of shadow here. He like
Yeah,
tilts his head into the shadow and he switches to the other guy.
it's very Andy Serkis Gollum kind of like.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy didn't phone his acting in. I mean, it's not like the best acting I've ever seen, but you know, he's putting his all into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh damn! I just looked it up. He passed away January 2008.
Oh, the actor, this guy?
I like
Not this guy.
Agent Willis. Yeah.
Yeah. That guy.
Yeah. I like this guy. Can I interest you in the Word of God? It comes in brown or black.
I mean, when you're like trying to canvas an area and find somebody, that's a good cover right there.
Yeah, that's
You know how
pretty
long
good.
it's been since I've seen a legit Bible salesman? Like the 80s, I think. They used to come around my grandmother's house all the time. Of course, they knew she
Okay.
would buy one, though.
Yeah, the problem
It's
with
like,
trying
I
to go to the
found a-
grandmothers though is they usually have like the family Bible that's been in the family for 100 years, and they don't want another one.
Yeah.
She would always buy them from him to give him as gifts.
Oh, okay.
So they triangle in where they are. Ha ha ha.
They're not incredibly sneaky about it though, especially not once they start pulling the guns out. They're just really
Yeah.
lucky that there is curtains over that window.
It's like he's playing possum.
Yeah.
Hut 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 hut.
Again, I think the way I was looking at the how he's fading would make it better. Maybe it wouldn't
Yeah.
actually playing possum, but I don't know, man. Can't believe I missed the whole diabetic thing being the reason he's dying.
Well,
Oh, you
that
missed
would
that?
make
You
more
thought he was
sense,
just
you know.
dying
And,
from his gunshot?
No, I just threw that out as like conflict that needed to like fill the story, because I was seeing his decline is basically like I said, like from the movie The Crow, like his body is trying to die and the spirit that's keeping him alive is just wearing itself out.
Hmm.
That's kind of how I saw it.
yeah, that could have worked too. I mean, it could have been like a passing line at the end.
Yeah.
Mulder's
But like I said,
about it. Or,
I will acknowledge that leaving having the diabetic storyline in there does leave a big area for Scully to be skeptical, which is necessary, especially in the early seasons. So I don't hate it. I don't know. In my head, I apparently had rewritten this episode as I watched it.
It was just that the fact that he didn't know. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
yeah, so he shoots her and then dies.
Yep.
And his tattoo disappears.
See, I kind of saw the diabetic stuff, like the tattoo, like a story point that didn't need to be there. I feel
Right.
so dumb that I missed that completely.
I mean, it wasn't like a terrible thing. It's just the fact that he didn't know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. He kept that watch
Yeah,
even after they broke up.
and his watch
Didn't-
stopped at 6:46 or something like that
I forget the exact
when he
time.
died on the operating table.
Yeah. Because Mulder's got to get that one last "I was right" jab in there.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. I forgot to bring that up. they have the wedding ring on the corpse. When you go to the morgue, if they do an autopsy, they take all that stuff off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And goes into evidence or like personal effects or whatever. So they don't leave any of that stuff on there. So that ring would have come off, unless maybe it wasn't. It somehow it couldn't be removed.
I mean, maybe if he had gone in rigor mortis before and it was like his hand was curved, and so they just had to wait for the natural chemical reaction to
Right.
fade and relax.
Yeah.
So
So
I
maybe
guess
he
you
was
could go with
just
that.
stored in there and they hadn't gotten around the autopsy yet. So
Which
that might
actually
Yeah,
no,
maybe.
that wouldn't have worked because he was the guy was in the hospital for 2 days before he woke up. Rigor mortis would have faded
Oh, yeah.
long before that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's all right.
So Scully's like, what does that mean about the watch? And he's like, it means whatever you want it to mean. And
Yeah.
that's the episode.
Because
It was
even though
pretty-
Mulder knows he's right, I guess he at least briefly shows a little bit of compassion for somebody who's grieving.
Mhm.
He's not a
Yeah.
total ass, just half of one.
Yeah, I think on the whole, both these episodes were decent.
Yeah.
Maybe not my favorite,
weren't-
but they weren't garbage. They weren't like, oh
No.
man, I don't ever want to watch them again.
They weren't really great either, but they were pretty good.
See, I liked the second one a lot better before I realized I had missed the diabetic plot point completely. I thought that one was pretty good. Now I'm looking at it going like, oh man, it kind of like fizzled out at the end then, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's why we have
Yeah.
these discussions is sometimes you think something is not good and then you figure out, no, this is why it's good. Or, more than likely than not is, oh, this movie's okay. And then people point out a lot of reasons why it's not. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh man.
Or even just that, if you tweaked it just a little bit, it would be a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, I
Right.
still think the second episode was the better of the two, but it definitely was.
Yeah.
It's definitely not as good as I initially thought it was upon my watching of it.
But yeah, like having the diabetes thing kind of came out of nowhere,
Mhm.
I mean, if they
Yeah.
had mentioned it earlier on or something.
Well, here's the thing also, back in 93, 94, diabetes was a lot less common than it is today.
Yeah.
Now it's like everywhere, just because as a nation and as a world, for the most part, we're so much fatter than we were back then.
Yeah.
By a lot,
Yeah. So yeah, pretty good episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, I think
Could be
the
better.
like I said, I think the first one was more just to set tone. It may have been a filler, but I think even if it was meant to be just kind of be a filler, it help help set the tone for the show going forward for people who may have not seen the first parts of the season. They're still trying to get their audience, find their footing. And the second episode is definitely
Yeah.
more interesting, but does fall a little bit flat at the end. But overall, like Shield said, they're not bad. It's just they're okay.
Yeah.
I like them because they give us a window back into like the 90s, and you can look at the styles and look at the old phone that guy has or whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Right.
fun.
Yeah, I'm just looking up the episodes that come next. Because we got some winners coming up in the next few months. Young at Heart is one of the next ones. A criminal believed to have died in prison years earlier wages a vendetta against Mulder. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, this is all a fun revisit for me. Some of it's just a first visit because I didn't really start watching X-Files until several seasons in.
Yeah, same here. So I might have seen one or two in the original, and then I know for a fact I hadn't seen these two. And then there's some ones later, like in the second season.
Yeah.
The main reason I hadn't seen any of these is I was still overseas, so I hadn't come back to the States yet at this time, so I hadn't seen them.
Right.
But the subsequent ones, I was back, so I was able to, randomly catch one on TV or something because everyone was talking about it, and then go, yeah, that one was cool, and then some other ones weren't so good, and
Yeah. I just happened to find it at the right time, and it was the first episode it was the pilot on TV, so I was there from the beginning.
yeah, there you go.
Brag about it.
Yeah. Well, I will. Thank you. But yeah. Yeah. So let's go around the horn and plug what we want to plug. Beard. What do you got?
Well, I think we're all gonna. Next thing for at least me is gonna be Roman's show on Thursday. At least I think I'm on that one. I'm pretty sure. I just show up, kind of like I do here. If there's a spot, I sit there. I can't remember exact. Oh no.
It's for Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
Yes. That'll be a first watch for me. Surprise. Other than that, Sunday afternoons with Stark of Iron for Fallout nerdiness. Monday evenings after the weekend, I am a bad co-host because I don't have any idea what we're doing in this next Monday. And then here on Tuesdays, I also game on my own YouTube channel at Beard of Liberty. I'll be doing some of that in about 15 or 20 minutes here. And to simplify it, Linktree/Beard of Liberty if anybody even bothers to try to follow me everywhere I go. So that'll cover it.
All right, cool. And Shieldwall, yeah, pretty Roman show.
Yes. So on Thursday, I'm doing a Roman show, Forbidden Planet, and then next week on your show, you're doing the Black Pearl.
Yes.
Yes. And then Ben-Hur after that. So that's gonna be a banger.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
So yeah.
So yeah, who do we got here? Let me pull it up real quick, just to say who's going to be on next week. So we got Gord King is going to be on, and Angry Canadian. I think that's a first for Angry Canadian.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Awesome.
And Love It Ever After is going to be on too.
Awesome.
So that'll be a fun one. So yeah. I will also be on Roman's show Thursday night. Then I'm usually kind of a unofficial co-host with Matt on his channel. I think it's Central Time. It's at 4:00, I think.
Yeah,
4 o'clock.
It's kind of a fun stream. It's just I can't.
It's an odd time.
Yeah, for me it was. I could barely catch it when he had it earlier, and now at that time it's totally a no-go for me. But on Fridays, but I've seen a few replays. It's pretty fun.
Cool. And Saturday is my game night, first episode, and I think we're going to be going over the rules and everything for the first episode, I think.
Oh, and have you already done
that starts Saturday?
Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. That'll be fun. And then next week for the Curse of the Black Pearl. So, yep, that's all I got.
Sweet.
Thanks to everybody in the chat for hanging out. Got a couple new viewers popped in there.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, trying to find them. Can't find them. Oh well. But yeah, thanks to the new people that popped in, and thanks to everybody in the chat for hanging. And we will see y'all next time. Have a good week, everybody.
Later, everyone.